I have no idea how someone could use Occam's razors as a support to show how using Occam's razor, the girls went their disappearing was natural. It was an accident. They got lost in the woods and not a crime. To me, that just does not make sense. This case points now as circumstantial. It is. I admit that. But what we know of this case, most of it points to a crime. Points to an abduction. It does. And let me use this illustration if you'll allow me to. Okay. Okay. Day one, you possibly have a tour guide that goes into the forest and looks for you. Right? You might have on day two. You might have that. On day three, you have other tour guides that are looking for you, and you have people that are using their own time looking for you, and then you have indigenous people looking for you, possibly too. Then you have the Panama efforts, and they cover a lot of ground. And then the Dutch team on like day 7 or 8 come, and the women are still alive at this time. If you're using this disappearance and natural disappearance theory, they're still alive during this time because of the dark photos. So you have these dogs that the Dutch team brings, investigators, and then you have the tour guides working there too. You have all these people going there. Let me ask you this question. If you were trying to hide, if you were hiding in the jungle, do you think that, and it wasn't really a jungle either, it wasn't that dense jungle like, but let's say that you strayed off into this dense jungle and you tried to hide under a log or something like that. Could you do it? Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe they would find you. But here's the deal. Lisa Ann Froon and Chris Kremers, they wanted to be found. They weren't hiding. So you have all these dogs, you have these tour guides, you have these investigators, you have them all on this forested area, and you want to be found. How unlikely is it that they're not going to find you? I mean, that just completely makes sense. And people miss that. They're like, well, if you get lost in a jungle, and they make it seem like someone's trying to hide. Like, yeah, I could hide in there, no one could find me. Yeah, perhaps. I think that you're vastly underestimating the indigenous people. I think you're vastly underrating the tour guides. Let me give you an illustration here for a second. I went to the Grand Canyon one time. Now, you can tell from my face and other parts that I'm overweight. Okay, I'm overweight. But the Grand Canyon, I went to the Grand Canyon. I was on the Arizona side, and I know that doesn't really tell you much because it's a big area. But I went 2 miles down into the Grand Canyon. Probably not even 2 miles. I probably went about 1 mile down, and it was pretty quick. Going up, it was so steep that it took me like an hour to go up a mile. And it wasn't just me because I was overweight, these other people. I mean, it took you a long time to go back up if you weren't like in tip top shape. And then you see these tour guides, these official tour guides that give people tours to the Grand Canyon. They're going up and they're like basically walking really fast up. I mean, my point is that they're covering the Grand Canyon time, going up and down. They're going about literally, I'm not about 4, 5, 6, maybe even 10 times faster than a normal person. These tour guides on this trail that are used to this trail, they would cover this ground so much faster than Lisa Ann Froon and Chris Kremers. They would cover this ground very swiftly. And I point back to, you go to Gettysburg National Park, you go to Yellowstone, wherever. Don't you think a tour guide is going to be able to cover the ground much further, especially if it's a trail in the wilderness? Of course. I mean, they would have known where to go. They would have known possible shelters. They would have known possible hiding places. But you see, these girls, these women, they weren't hiding. They wanted to be found, as I've already said. It's not like this area is like It's not like these women could have been lost in like this gigantic of a place. Okay, it's large, but we're not talking about the state of Nevada or something here. It just doesn't add up. If there was dogs, if there were dogs, if there were the tour guides, then they would have found these people. They would have found those two women. They would have. Because this is the part that I think is being lost. These women wanted to be found. And when you're wanting to be found, you're so much easier to be found. They weren't hiding. Okay? So there was a search parties that were actually after them pretty early too. I've heard some people say that the initial tour guide on the second day, the first day that they were missing, he went to look. Maybe that's not true, but on the third day, they did have people go. They did have tour guides go. And on the sixth day, the Panama search had. On the seventh day, the Dutch team came. You see, they had these searches going on, and I bet these indigenous people, I bet they knew this land pretty well. If there's rice paddy farms by the banks of the creek or river, they knew this pretty well. So that just doesn't add up. These women would have been found, I believe. Now, is there a small possibility that they would have been? Yeah, sure. I'll grant that. I'm not talking about factual here. I'm talking about theories that make the most sense. But you have to agree at this point that Occam's razor is on the side of abduction. You have to. Yeah, we can make weird theories why, this or that didn't happen, but this goes far beyond just weird theories. You're lost in territory. It's not small, but it's not that big. You have people that search more of the territory than you could have gone into. You have people that know the area. You have dogs, and you want to be found. Give me a break. Come on. This was a crime. And we are disrespecting these women by saying that they made juvenile mistakes and got themselves lost and they died because of their own foolishness. We are disrespecting them when we say that. That's not what this case is pointing to. So please show more respect. Thank you very much.